Hi, everyone. Welcome to Maple Clicks Learning Center. Today, we will have a live webinar. We are also on Facebook and YouTube. Kindly feel free to follow us. In today's discussion, we have Irene Awar, who is a speech pathologist with a bachelor's degree in counseling psychology from Kenyatta University. And she also works with Empisha Hospital as a speech therapist with the pediatric special clinics. We are really happy to have you, Irene. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's nice
we
to
are
be
here.
here.
I'm glad to. So today we will be deliberating on how parents, caregivers, teachers, nannies, assistant teachers can assist children to develop in their speech and language. We all know that without speech, even as an adult, you get frustrated. Imagine being deployed in a new country and you're not even conversant with the local language. You need something as simple as probably water or food, and you can't actually get it. It's quite frustrating. So Irene is here to help us to shed light on what we can do as early as when they're little so that we can ease their growth. But before we go to Irene, I will be discussing about the importance of sending your little child to a daycare and kindergarten. To start with, children do not understand time. They cannot read a clock or a watch that is on your wrist. However, they get regular routines, put them in shape. Therefore, at Maple Clicks Learning Center, we have structured times for play, for eating, for napping that are sequential, and we repeat them. We tell them stories, we have time to sing, so they know. After I get to school, I remove my Crocs, I put on my shoes, I get into class, I hang my bag, I sit down, I play. At 9 o'clock, we have our circle time. The teacher reads me a story, and so forth and so forth. So that's one thing that they get to learn when they are in a daycare. Another thing is academic advancement. Scientists have already discovered that a daycare helps children with cognitive performance, even in their future learning. They become more successful than children who did not attend daycare. If your child attends daycare, for sure, you will tell that there is increased confidence. They benefit a lot by socializing with other children, some who are slightly younger, some who are slightly older. They communicate. Have you ever met a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old telling you about their morning? They will even tell you how their breakfast was, what they ate. If they had a puncture on the way, they will tell you. That means that child has communication skills and they have built their self-esteem. They also get to have time to enjoy the company of their peers. They socialize, they form friendships that last throughout their school years. Another importance of taking your child to daycare is that they get a smoother transition into kindergarten and later to primary. Because of the schedules that and routines that we set for them in daycare, they find it easy to settle in a formal schooling environment, and they participate in the engaging activities without much help. Therefore, they become independent. That's another thing as to why you should send your child to a daycare. They learn how to put on their socks. They learn how to arrange their toys in a certain order. They learn so many things and they become independent. They just don't rely on their family members. Now they have the teacher by themselves, and the teacher may not be able to take care of them, all of them at the same time, like dress all of them. They have to learn to take up such activities. They also learn to be cooperative. They collaborate with their peers. They become team players. And the last point is communication. And I left it to the tail end because we have our specialist with us. We will be asking her intimate questions that will help us understand truly what can we do to help our children. Definitely, sending your child to a daycare and kindergarten is beneficial because the environment is conducive. They have children of different ages, and therefore they're able to communicate effectively. And because we engage them intentionally, they become very chatty and talkative. Some are comfortable with nonverbal skills, and some actually acquire the proper way of communicating. So, without further ado, I would like to ask questions to Irene. Irene, tell us. We know one benefit of taking children to a daycare is early intervention. Could you kindly shed some more light on early intervention?
Okay, so early intervention is whereby we identify some of the communication challenges or basically any other challenges that a child might go through. And then with early intervention, we tend to now step in to ensure that this communication difficulty they might be having will not develop into a communication disorder. And normally at daycare, at least they will learn to interact with their peers. They'll be able to practice their communication skills there. So eventually they'll be able to learn faster compared to a child who is just at home, not interacting with others.
Thank you very much, Irene, for that. Therefore, that means there are speech milestones, there are speech and language milestones that they must achieve by, let's say, age. At the age of 1 to 2, Irene, what should we expect?
Yeah, very true. They are just like the rather developmental milestones. We also have the language and speech milestones. Like, for example, during the first 12 months, a child is accomplishing a lot. They are growing, they're learning to crawl, to walk, and all that. So, also in speech, we have the same. So, by the time a child is like 6 months, we expect this child to be babbling. By the time they are 12 months, we expect them to at least have said their first words. So, between 1 to 2 years, there are some sounds, some speech sounds that this child should be able to articulate. Like, for example, the b, the d, the ha, the ma, the n, and the p. Those ones are the early developing sounds that will have a child with, by 1 to 2 years, they'll be able to articulate those. And also, we have the receptive language skills and the expressive language skills. So receptive language skills is basically what this child understands. And for the receptive, between that age of 1 to 2, we'll have a child be able to point at a few body parts. Like at 18 months, they'll be able to point at 3 body parts correctly. At 21 months, they'll be able to point at 5, like the eyes, the ears, the legs, the hands. And at 20 months, they'll be able to point and identify the clothing that they have, maybe shoes or socks. By 24 months, this child will be able to understand the members of a family, like dad, mom, sister, brother. And also, they'll start using action words. Like, for example, if you pretend to eat or if you show them a picture of eating, they'll be able to know that is eating. They'll be able to identify words like washing hands, sleeping at 24 months. And also,
Wow.
they'll be able to understand simple instructions. Like, for example, if you ask them, where's your shoe? They'll be able to point at it if they can't verbalize it by then. They'll be able to understand simple commands like sit down, stand up, come here. They'll be able to understand such things. They'll also, you'll see that they enjoy listening to new words. They enjoy listening to songs, to other nursery rhymes. And also, if you give them a book or a picture, they'll be able to sustain interest at it, looking at it and pointing as you talk about what is happening in the picture. So those are some of the receptive language skills. Yeah.
Thank you very
We,
much, Irene. Okay. Would you like to tell us by the age of 2 to 3, what do we expect? What should we expect?
okay. By the age of 2 to 3, we also expect emergence of additional speech sounds besides the ones that we talked about earlier. They'll start using the g sounds as in got, the k sound as in cup, the t sound like tap, and the w sound. And at this age, the child will be able to recognize some size differences. They'll be able to at least use 200, at 2 years, they'll be able to use at least 50 words. As they progress to 3, the words will increase to about 200 plus words. And also at this age, at 2, they'll start joining words. Like, for example, they'll be able to join words like come here, mommy go, daddy come, such like things. They'll start joining words. And also they'll be able to start expressing themselves. Like if they want something, they can verbalize it. They can verbalize what it is that they want. And also their speech is at least 50% clear to everyone. You can at least understand them 50% of the time at 2. They can also start following longer directions, like 2-step directions. For example, if you tell them, take this book and put it on the table, they can do that. They understand that, as opposed to when they are less than 2, whereby you just have to give instructions in one step, like take this. You don't add so many things that they'll not be able to understand.
Thank you very
And also,
much. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
okay, they'll also be able to understand common verbs. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you tell them something, they'll be able to understand what it is that you want. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, dear. What about 3 to 4? What do we expect?
Okay, at 3 to 4, they'll also gain new sounds. Like, for example, the ng sounds as in ngombe. The s sound will also start coming up, and the z sound will also start coming up. But it won't be as articulate because it's still emerging. And at 3 years, they'll have a lot of words. Between 3 to 4, their words will have grown to almost 1,000 plus words that they can use to communicate. They can also identify colors and name them. They can start using some plural verbs, such as they can know that if this is a pen, if there are many, they are pens. But that one they can also only do for the regular verbs, the one that you just add the S at the end. But now with the irregular verbs that go and went, that will still be difficult for them. But for the regular ones, they can be able to express that. And also they can demonstrate understanding of this is a book. They'll understand that when you say this is a book, you are speaking to this particular book, not that one. They can be able to tell that difference. And they'll also start to use pronouns like okay, sorry about that. Like, for example, when you're talking to them, they can be able to understand that this is their name. They can be able to know, yes, I'm Irene, this is Irene. And also, if I'm talking about Irene as me, I'll be saying I. They can be able to know the difference with that.
Uh-huh.
And they also
Beautiful.
understand simple propositions. Yeah.
Beautiful. And that means when they're read to a story, they can easily follow, they can imitate characters in the story, they can dramatize. They can participate actively during story time lesson, and that is how they build their vocabulary. What
Yeah,
about
yeah,
when they are
makes
four?
sense.
Yeah, yeah. What about when they are 4 to 5? I'm sure if they are building up their vocabulary, I mean their words as they're growing as expected, then 4 to 5 should be a lot. Then looking forward to what you have for us.
Yeah, 4 to 5, at 4 to 5 years, the number of words has increased tremendously up to until 1,500 words. They can now use sentences, uh, 3 to 4 word sentences. They can construct that long of a sentence. They can also answer the simple WH questions like, what is this? Where are you going? They can be able to answer that. They can now also be able to describe a story themselves. Like they can tell you, this is how my day was. I woke up, I did this and that. They'll also be able to narrate the entire alphabet and also a few numbers. They talk without repeating themselves, and they can also change their communication style depending on who they are talking to. If it's a child, they can be able to change that to a language which a younger child, a younger one than them, can understand. They can also, in terms of their receptive language, they understand word orders like this is now, this is next, this is later. They can be able to understand those ones. They can follow longer instructions, like a 3-step instruction. They can be able to follow that. They can enact, the way you were saying, they can be able to enact the story. Like, for example, if someone was jumping in the story, they can start jumping with them. If they were eating, they can start pretend eating with them. They also now understand um, the much more complex prepositions like in front of, between. They can understand the difference in sizes in terms of this one is big, this one is big, this one is biggest. They can also tell that difference. And generally, they'll understand most of what is had either at home, at school, at the playground. They can be able to understand more things.
Wow, that's quite a lot. That's quite a bit. In our daycare, what we do. Thank you for that, Irene. That's a lot. That's a lot in terms of what we should expect. At the age of 5, they're actually writing stories. They write short sentences. They may get the spelling wrong, but that is not the point. The point here is that the child should be able to write and inform the teacher and the class members how they spend their weekend. And I think this is a good thing because now that means not only do we know that they have the ability, but we also stretch their abilities so that they can put what it is that their thoughts into writing. Thank you, Irene. Now let's now dive into the reality of life. So, at what age should a parent get concerned about their child's language development?
Okay. So the age at a parent can start getting concerned is like, for example, at 12 years, oh, sorry, at 12 months, and the child cannot use gestures, they cannot point at something, they cannot maybe wave by or hi. They're not trying to use the nonverbal communication skills to communicate. That is a cause for alarm for a parent at 12 months. At 18 months, if the child still prefers using the gestures and the pointing as opposed to now using the words that they have, that can also be a cause for concern. Or at 18 months, also, if they cannot imitate sounds. For example, if you say boy and they're not trying to imitate it, even by saying bo or ba, then that's a cause for concern for a parent. And by the time the child is 2 years, they should be able to understand simple instructions. If they cannot do that, then there might be a delay somewhere. And maybe
All right.
if,
All
in
right.
terms
Thank you,
of their
Irene.
boy, yeah,
Okay. All right. Thank you, Irene. Yeah. So from the age of 1, the parent needs to be very keen But unless we the experts actually create the awareness, then again the parents feel like they do not really know what they should expect for their children at that age, which is a bit sad. But it is good that we are actually helping parents right now to be able to identify if their children have any learning challenges in terms of language development. You've already spoken about the signs that a child needs help. I think it's the same as when should a parent get concerned and what are the signs that the child needs help with speech development. So I will ask then, what are the earlier on we discussed and said the benefits of sending your child to a daycare at an early age. And one of it was the early identification, which you're shedding light about. So, but what are the advantages, Irene? Really, I've had parents say, you know what, my other relative, the child spoke at the age of 10, the child spoke at the age of 6. Really, are there any advantages of early identification and intervention?
Yeah, there are. And true, that's always a major issue whereby parents are like, if a child, my neighbor's child talked at 4, at 5, it's okay. Okay, it's true. Some children are just late developers. They will learn, but majority of them might need help to now, will need help to further their communication and language development.
Thank you. Thank you, Irene, about that. Yes. That means if they are identified early, if it is identified early, the intervention is administered at an early age, and therefore the child does not struggle much, because as the child grows older, it might be very difficult for the child to catch up, or you the parent may even feel embarrassed and try to withdraw the child from the rest of the children. They hide them. But when they are identified early, the intervention is easier at an early age, and even the application. True.
Yeah, that is true. For example, normally by the age of 3, this child has already developed the neural connections required for language development. So if now the intervention was done earlier before they were 3, they'll be able to quickly learn, because you see now the neural connections are still happening. But at a later age, it will become more difficult for them to learn this language. So it's an advantage if the child goes through early intervention and the therapy starts early, so that they can be able to develop and catch up with the rest before they start school.
Thank you, Irene, for shedding light on that. Um, my very close to the last question is, I am a parent. I have identified that from what I've probably read, what I've heard experts say, my child is not at par as expected. What should a parent do, Irene?
Okay, whenever a parent gets to learn that maybe their child is developing slower than the rest, or if they have any cause to be concerned regarding the child's language development, they should first seek evaluation from a speech pathologist. And aside from that, there are also some things they can do at home, like try communicating with the child using simple language. They can try reading to the child in also simple language, showing them pictures of things, um, describing everything they do at home. If it's cooking, they describe the process with the child. Just ways to encourage this communication, the give and take of communication. Yeah.
Beautiful. I really like that when you're saying the parent needs to involve their children and describe activities that they are engaging in, to detail. You find some children have lots of vocabulary because their parents go a little, an extra mile, a little more than, normal. And that way, that helps the child to acquire lots of vocabulary. So, my very last question, Irene, is what are the steps needed for a child to receive help? Now, we've already identified probably this child needs help. What are the steps?
Okay. It usually depends where it started. Like, for example, if the child was taken to the hospital, a pediatrician can now tell the parent that your child is delayed in this way. You can seek intervention from a speech pathologist, or if it's at school, the teacher talks to the parent and tell them the concerns regarding the language development of this child. They also refer them to a speech therapist, whereby an evaluation will be done to come up with a diagnosis, after which steps of treatment plan can be developed and steps on how to support this child made so that the therapy can be successful in the end.
Oh, thank you very much, Irene. I would I really appreciate that you have spent your time to come and shed light on this journey of speech and language development. Thank you very much, Irene. Thank you, viewers, for attending this webinar. Kindly feel free to consult further with the MapleClicks admin. Now we have the speech and language special sessions with Irene as the expert and consultant in that area. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Irene, and have yourself a lovely evening. I will end the broadcast. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Okay, bye.